Buenas tardes, bienvenidos y bienvenidas a esta sesión plenaria. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Alberto Ares, and together with my colleague, Stephanie Russell, we will moderate this plenary session to deepen our understanding and commitment to one of the crossroads of our time: migration, refugees, and those on the frontier. Our discussion is firmly anchored in the universal apostolic preferences of the Society of Jesus, particularly the UAP, the second one, walking with the excluded. These preferences call us to make a serious commitment to walk along the poor, the outcasts of the world, and those whose dignity was being violated, all within a mission rooted in reconciliation and justice. This involves working closely with universities and social centers within the Jesuit network, promoting awareness, creating safe spaces, building bridges, healing bonds, promoting hospitality, and fostering pathways of hope, as Father Arturo Sosa invited us. At the same time, let me introduce to you the new programmatic priorities of the Jesuit Refugee Service for the coming years: economic inclusion and livelihood, mental health and psychological support, reconciliation, global advocacy, effects of climate change on displacement, building refugee participation and inclusion, community engagement, partnership, and accountability to affected populations, among others. In terms of advocacy, one of the main priorities will be to advocate for forcibly displaced people to expand protection and access to safe territory where they can seek and enjoy asylum, international protection, and be accepted without discrimination and marginalization. So, the context of our commitment has never been more urgent. To better understand this current migration context, I invite you to watch this video, Global Trends in Human Mobility, an in-depth analysis. Please.
Hello everyone, welcome to our IAJU panel. Today we're diving into the fascinating world of global human mobility. Why are millions of people on the move? Let's break it down. In 2024, there were 304 million international migrants worldwide. That's nearly double the 154 million recorded in 1990. But migration isn't just about crossing borders. There are also 122.6 million forcibly displaced people by mid-2024, up 11.5% from 2023, plus 75.9 million people living in internal displacement. These numbers are staggering and tell a story of a world on the move. So what drives migration today? There are several key factors. First, economic disparities. The average income in high-income countries is 54 times higher than in low-income countries, making the prospect of moving very attractive. Therefore, we have demographic shifts. Aging populations in developed countries create a demand for foreign workers. Conflict and political instability are also major drivers, forcing people to flee their home. And let's not forget environmental pressures. Climate change, natural disasters, and environmental degradation push people to seek safer and more stable environments. Where are people going? Europe is the top destination, hosting 94 million international migrants in 2024. Northern America follows with 61 million, and Northern Africa and Western Asia with 54 million. The United States stands out as the leading destination country, hosting 52.4 million migrants. Other top destinations include Germany, Saudi Arabia, the UK, Spain, and France. Interestingly, nearly half of all international migrants live in their region of birth. showing that regional migration is significant. Let's talk about major migration corridors. The largest is from Latin America and the Caribbean to Northern America, with 27 million migrants. Central and Southern Asia to Northern Africa and Western Asia comes next, followed by Northern Africa and Western Asia to Europe. These corridors highlight economic opportunities, historical connections, and regional stability as key factors. Looking ahead, migration is expected to remain stable. Conflicts, economic pressures, demographic changes, urbanization, and environmental stress will continue to drive people to move. Interestingly, geopolitical events will also play a role. In this world on the move, we are all migrants in some way. In conclusion, human mobility is as old as mankind and will continue to accompany us on our journey. Understanding these patterns helps us grasp the broader picture of our interconnected world, so migration is one of the driving forces behind our growth as humanity. Thanks for watching. We will now explain how our universities engage with migrants and refugees. See you soon.
Thank you. That's good. So in response to these complex realities, Jesuit universities are uniquely positioned and actively engaged, as we all know, in providing diverse forms of support, aligning with our core values of social justice, human dignity, and cura personalis. Global migration isn't just a headline, it's a human story. Every day, millions search for safety, dignity, and hope across borders. Jesuit universities are right at the heart of this, making a real difference. Our institutions are already leveraging their strengths in teaching, research, advocacy, and community partnerships to address the global migration crisis comprehensively. Now we're going to talk in a moment about a few specifics of that, but if you'll permit one brief interjection, hearkening back to Father Christie's introduction to the entire assembly, and that is to say that before offering these examples, it's important, I think, to take a moment to notice, as St. Ignatius was so adept at noticing, that every theme of the assembly informs the others. So for deepening our solidarity with migrants and refugees, we must be attentive to the spiritual and mental health of our migrant and refugee students, whose psychosocial health can be extremely fragile. We must attend to the effects of both secularism and fundamentalism on their safety and their self-determination. Artificial intelligence shines a revealing light on the digital divide and the fact that so many migrants and refugees lack true access to our digital world. It also, conversely, presents new possibilities for migration research, tracking, and data synthesis. This is material for discussion with our undergraduate and our graduate students. And finally, the insights of our environmental justice colleagues are vital to understanding the causes and effects of climate displacement. So all of this is not just to weave a picture for us, it is to say that the work of solidarity with migrants and refugees belongs to all of us, belongs from the platforms at which we began, and that your wisdom and insight are irreplaceable contributions to this work. And so we count on your input, your questions, your contributions, your revelation of what's happening in your own local and regional communities. So, back to some examples of the remarkable work and best practices in which we're currently engaged. Education isn't just about books and lectures at places like Loyola University Chicago's Rome Center, where students dive into service learning working side by side with migrants and refugees. They don't just learn about justice, they engage in encounter in ways that for many of our schools were not always the case as we see community engagement and service learning changing. Fordham's faculty members travel to the US-Mexico border seeing the realities of migration up close. They aren't just trips, they're life-changing journeys that turn empathy into advocacy. Our schools are also tearing down language barriers. In Spain, students at Comillas Pontifical University run Spanish classes for migrants, opening doors to rights and opportunities. In Mexico, Iberoamericana, Puebla, and Torreon teach students and migrants together, learning, growing, and celebrating diversity. Courses at Canisius and ICAM in France bridge the gap between theory and practice with students helping refugees resettle and learn job skills. And even in STEM fields, Detroit Mercy's chemistry department is supporting immigrant students and migrants and refugees in meaningful ways. And like so many Jesuit schools, they are in the process leveling the playing field in ways we have not seen. But it of course goes beyond the classroom. Jesuit institutions are shaping policy and changing lives through community research projects, like the binational work on labor migration between Puebla and Seattle, or Deusto's focus on unaccompanied minors. Javeriana here and at Aloysius in India, our colleagues are advocating for better laws, human dignity, and reconciliation for migrants facing injustice. What's at the center of all of this, what seems to be a common denominator, is holistic support. The Loyola New Orleans Law Clinic stands with immigrants in court while their Café con Inglés creates safe, welcoming spaces. In Unicinos, Brazil, Comias, Madrid, and the Center for Culture and Development in Gujarat, collaboration and hospitality is everything. There we see Jesuit networks, JRS, civil society, and local partners joining hands for lasting change. And at Marquette, like at many of our sister schools, they back undocumented students with scholarship and mentoring.
So here is our call. Let's go bolder. Let's make migration studies core to every curriculum and support our research faculty to collaborate with each other. Let's turn research into action, and let's offer real opportunities, scholarships, internships, and a seat at the academic table for migrants and refugees. Let's advocate for the cause of migrants, collaborate with other Jesuit works and communities, and promote a narrative that avoids criminalizing human mobility. Much more needs to be done, but together with courage and open hearts, Jesuit higher education will continue to build bridges and transform lives. And that's a future that I want to be part of. These diverse examples and calls for engagement demonstrate the power of the Jesuit network to activate its values in service of the excluded. Our collective efforts are not only enhance academic understanding, but also driving meaningful real-world change. All these recommendations are the results of a consultation we have carried out with a group of experts around the world, including several of our universities present here, over the last few months. But now, let's get to know some of these initiatives and experiences from their champions, who are with us today.
We have a wonderful panel that we're really pleased to share with you. Can you tell this is going to be happening the whole time, sort of up and down? I needed to bring some heels. That's just great. Thank you very much. Margarita Núñez Chaim holds a PhD in anthropology. She is a researcher, a tremendous human rights defender, specializing in forced migration, gender and migration policies, with extensive experience studying inequality, violence, and the organization of migrants and refugees. Since 2020, she's coordinated the Migration Affairs Program at the Universidad Iberoamericana in Mexico City, and she's been recognized for her academic and social work, conducting field research, documenting human rights violations, creating training tools for defenders and shelters with a firm commitment to social justice, but particularly on initiatives that serve the needs of migrant women and their families. We are so blessed to have her here. Please welcome Dr. Núñez Chaim.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am deeply grateful for the opportunity to speak here on behalf of the Migration Affairs Program at Universidad Iberoamericana in Mexico City. Also, to share the panel with my colleagues here. It is a true honor to participate in this IAJU General Assembly at Pontificia Universidad Javeriana. Now I'm going to switch to Spanish to do my presentation more fluently and to respect the time limits. Quisiera empezar diciendo que hace 20 años la Ibero de la Ciudad de México fundó el Programa de Asuntos Migratorios, el PRAMI, con la misión de brindar respuestas institucionales a la compleja y urgente realidad migratoria de México y de la región. El programa nació así, enraizado en la misión ignaciana de la universidad, lo que ayer comentaba el padre general, y como una respuesta a una realidad migratoria que nos interpelaba entonces y que lamentablemente, como ya lo compartieron ahora Stephanie y Alberto, como estoy segura que todas y todos ustedes lo saben, en estos últimos 20 años no ha hecho más que recrudecerse en detrimento de los derechos de las personas migrantes y refugiadas. Lo cual además, dicho sea de paso, pues está profundamente vinculado a otras temáticas que ya se han hablado y discutido en esta asamblea, como la crisis de la democracia. Y en ese sentido es una realidad que nos sigue interpelando hoy. La migración es un signo de nuestro tiempo, pero también es un espejo de nuestras injusticias. Por lo mismo, la siguiente, por favor, el programa nació como un programa de incidencia, con esa misión específica de ir más allá de la universidad. Y nuestro modelo ha sido claro: articular la investigación, la acción y la formación dentro y fuera de la universidad. Además, este modelo se sostiene y amplifica gracias al trabajo en red con otras universidades jesuitas, en particular con nuestras hermanas universidades jesuitas de México, con las obras sociales y pastorales, y sobre todo a través del trabajo de la Red Jesuita con Migrantes, que precisamente articula a obras sociales, pastorales y universidades para ser cuerpo apostólico y alcanzar más misión. Hoy quisiera compartir con ustedes dos estrategias de acción que han sido clave en nuestro trabajo y que pueden ser consideradas como buenas prácticas de la universidad en favor de las personas migrantes y refugiadas. Son dos acciones que se enfocan en dos sujetos distintos, que son los actores clave de los contextos migratorios en México. Por un lado, por supuesto, las personas migrantes y refugiadas al centro, y por el otro, las personas que acompañan y defienden a las personas migrantes. Primero quisiera hablarles pues de cómo hemos construido y consolidado una estrategia para documentar violaciones a derechos humanos que viven las personas migrantes y refugiadas en nuestro país. Esto se traduce en informes técnicos, en diagnósticos rigurosos, que no solo analizan, sino que lo que buscan es transformar. Este trabajo nos permite, uno, construir memoria sobre las injusticias que acontecen en los contextos migratorios. Ayer el padre general hablaba de cómo cuando no hay condiciones para el diálogo, las universidades debemos ser testigo y dar testimonio de lo que acontece. Y la documentación es precisamente un método para hacer esto. En segundo lugar, estas acciones también nos permiten identificar necesidades urgentes para poder activar respuestas de atención humanitaria adecuadas, en articulación, por supuesto, con los actores que implementan estas respuestas de atención. Y en tercer lugar, esto también nos permite generar acciones de incidencia para el cambio, habilitando el diálogo entre diferentes actores sociales. Esto lo hacemos en alianza con organizaciones de la sociedad civil que están en el terreno y en el acompañamiento directo, en especial, por supuesto, con el Servicio Jesuita Refugiados en México, y aportando desde el programa con herramientas metodológicas, con la rigurosidad técnica de la documentación y la investigación, con el tiempo y los recursos humanos que la universidad nos permite y que muchas veces estos actores que están en terreno no tienen o no les es suficiente. Esto lo hacemos para generar estrategias conjuntas con estos actores de la sociedad civil, de incidencia pública, de incidencia jurídica y de incidencia política. Estrategias que van desde la difusión para el conocimiento público de estas problemáticas y la denuncia pública, hasta la incidencia a través de litigios y la participación en organismos regionales e internacionales de derechos humanos en los que acercamos evidencia para la toma de decisiones informada. Algunos ejemplos de esto que estoy hablando, ahora en las pantallas pueden ver un esfuerzo de documentación que hemos hecho sobre la militarización de la política migratoria en México. Esta documentación la utilizamos para aportar evidencia en una discusión de la Suprema Corte de Justicia en México sobre la constitucionalidad de esta política. En la siguiente diapositiva es un diagnóstico que realizamos sobre el Instituto Nacional de Migración en México, que es la institución encargada de la implementación de la política migratoria en nuestro país. Este diagnóstico precisamente analiza cómo esta institución ha adoptado una lógica de control militar y cómo esto tiene una relación directa con el incremento de violaciones a derechos humanos de las personas migrantes. En la siguiente diapositiva pueden ver otro ejemplo en el que estudiamos los procesos de externalización de la frontera de Estados Unidos a México y en particular a través de la política Quédate en México, que ahora el gobierno de Estados Unidos está intentando volver a implementar. Y finalmente en las dos siguientes diapositivas pueden ver ejemplos de informes que hemos realizado documentando no solo las violaciones a los derechos humanos de las personas migrantes, sino también los procesos de organización y de resistencia de las personas frente a estas injusticias. En concreto, son informes sobre las caravanas y los campamentos de personas migrantes en la Ciudad de México. De hecho, lo comentaba ayer en nuestro grupo de reflexión de México sobre las palabras del Padre General. También es necesario documentar para visibilizar y dar a conocer los procesos de organización de la esperanza que hay en estos tiempos retadores. La siguiente, por favor. La segunda estrategia clave que quisiera hoy compartir con ustedes, y lo decía hace un momento, se enfoca en otro actor clave de los contextos migratorios, y es el fortalecimiento a albergues, a organizaciones locales y a personas defensoras de derechos humanos que muchas veces son criminalizadas por ejercer y defender la criminalización. También lo mencionaba ayer el Padre General, haciendo referencia al Evangelio de Lucas. Quienes levantan la voz ante estas injusticias son perseguidas y perseguidos. Y es por eso que desde el programa hemos decidido acompañar a quienes acompañan y poner nuestro trabajo al servicio de quienes defienden los derechos humanos de las personas migrantes y refugiadas. Hacemos un trabajo de documentación permanente sobre las agresiones que enfrentan. Justamente en la diapositiva pueden ver otro informe que recién publicamos hace un mes con esta documentación sobre las agresiones a personas defensoras. Y también promovemos espacios de formación, de fortalecimiento y de intercambio de buenas prácticas entre ellas y ellos, disponiendo de nuevo de las herramientas que tenemos en la universidad, de los recursos humanos y técnicos, del espacio que nos podemos permitir para dialogar y para discernir, al servicio de quienes están en la primera línea de acompañamiento a las personas migrantes. Todo este trabajo parte de una convicción. La universidad debe siempre ir más allá, en el servicio, en el análisis crítico y la acción comprometida, con los desafíos que enfrenta el mundo. Debemos de, como decía ayer también el Padre General, mirar con profundidad la realidad y actuar desde ella, enraizadas y enraizados en nuestro carisma. En el programa creemos que la universidad debe de ir al encuentro de quienes viven en los márgenes y poner sus capacidades académicas, metodológicas y humanas al servicio de la transformación. Utilizar la voz autorizada de la universidad para abrir el diálogo en estos temas que cada vez son más polarizados y más polarizantes. Mirando al futuro, aspiramos a integrar aún más activamente a las y los estudiantes en este camino. Siempre es un reto, pero nunca dejamos de insistir. Y a seguir articulando la presencia territorial de las obras jesuitas con el saber crítico de las universidades. Queremos una universidad cada vez más comprometida y arraigada en las fronteras y los márgenes, pero también más puentes entre esos márgenes y la sociedad en su conjunto. Sabemos que cada universidad jesuita habita un entorno cultural distinto, pero para concluir quisiera decir que al menos creo que todas y todos podemos hacer 4 cosas. 1, escuchar a las personas en movilidad. 2, habilitar espacios y procesos de diálogo. 3, tender puentes entre el conocimiento y la acción. Y 4, asumir como misión institucional el acompañamiento a quienes están en los territorios organizando la esperanza. Esta creo que es una tarea común, profundamente ignaciana y absolutamente urgente. Muchísimas gracias.
Let me now introduce Father Elias Omondi Opongo, a Jesuit priest from Kenya, an associate professor of peace studies and international relations, and the director of the Center for Research, Training and Publication at Hekima University College, Nairobi, Kenya. A former dean of the Hekima Institute of Peace Studies and International Relations, where he has taught for 13 years. Father Opongo holds a PhD in Peace Studies from the University of Bradford, UK, and an MA in the International Peace Studies for the J.V. Kroc Institute of International Studies, the University of Notre Dame. His expertise, research, and publication span transitional justice, post-conflict reconstruction, refugee and migration studies, state building, democracy, religious extremism, and the nexus between extractive industries and conflicts. Please welcome Father Elias.
My task is very easy, to give you a bit of an overview of the work of JRS and our Jesuit institution in the African continent. If you look at the migrations within the African continent, we see them at two levels. First is close to 15 million Africans migrate within the continent, and the other 32 million who've been displaced due to conflict. The 15 million largely is just because of looking for works and jobs in different countries within the continent, and only close to 11 million migration of Africans into Europe, and further 3 million into the US or Canada. In East Africa, where I am, and where Hekima College is situated, we host 5.4 million refugees. And these 5.4 million refugees largely coming from Somalia, which has had conflicts for many years, South Sudan, Sudan, and also Congo. We have further 18 million internally displaced persons within this particular region. Our region also hosts JRS at the very early years. JRS, as you know, was founded in 1984, and in 1989, JRS was started in Kenya, particularly to respond to refugees again from Somalia and South Sudan. So Kenya as a country hosts more than 700,000 refugees. And so it's imperative for us as Jesuits to respond both in social service but also through academic initiatives to this plight of refugees. So we do have specialized courses at Hekima Institute of Peace Studies International Relations. We have also partnered with the Jesuit Refugee Service and Jesuit Worldwide Learning. We have more than 3,500 students who are being supported by Jesuit Worldwide Learning in refugee camps. And recently, just a few months ago, we started also a program for refugee migrants within the urban areas, particularly within Nairobi. So that has been a very major response for us. We've also looked at how, for our own students, both in theology and also within international relations and peace studies, we do give them opportunities to work with JRS and to do internship programs. For more than 10 years, we partnered with Entre Culturas to ensure that at least a selected group of our theology students would be assigned to different parts of the continent to experience the work with refugees. Next. In our own theological formation, students also have the option of meeting refugees. For example, 2 years ago, we had a special conference on migration where we were able to bring in refugees who had been in the country for many years. And one of the challenges we've seen also is the stateless migrants. As you know, worldwide, according to UNHCR, a United Nations High Commission for Refugees, we have more than 10 million stateless persons. These are people who've been born in a country other than their own and may not have the birthright to be citizens in those particular countries. So we find that direct engagement and particular courses to expose our students to the plight of refugees has also driven the social justice drive for these particular students to be engaged and to work in social justice work in protection of refugees and migrants. Next. We've worked in partnership with JRS. Every year we do co-host a program with refugees on the 20th of June, and this takes a whole week of awareness with the local populations around the plight of refugees. And on the 20th of June, as we know, is the World Refugee Day. We do host quite a number of events with the students and the refugees just to raise this particular awareness, including our own Jesuit students, those in theology. When they do a Rupe month, they also meet staff from the JRS just to have some immersions, including our own Tertian Jesuits. They also have to do some immersions within JRS Jesuit refugee camps. Next. Some of the best practices that we can look into. We've not paid a good attention onto the psychological impact of migration on refugees. Many who are living away from their homes, some cannot go back home because either the conflict is still going on, or perhaps they are wanted for particular crimes, or they just feel vulnerable because maybe their parents died and they don't have anywhere to go for direct engagement. We've also had implementation as part of the Society of Jesus Universal Apostolic Preferences, putting that particular emphasis on how do we actually enhance our own response in working with JRS and Jesuit Worldwide Learning to reach out to these particular refugees. With Jesuit Worldwide Learning, we run a peace leadership program, and tomorrow I think Jesuit Worldwide Learning will be making presentation on their own programs. I was particularly involved in that peace leadership program. It's an online program, but with on-site instructors who work with these very marginalized populations to give them some form of education, diploma, and sometimes up to the degree level. And that Ekima has been now one of the learning sites for that particular program. And as I've said, we're reaching out close to 3,500 marginalized refugees within that particular program. Next. And so to conclude, we have just some new proposals. Perhaps we'll try and see how do we extend the Hekima model to our other Jesuit universities and colleges within the continent, because we also have displaced communities within the Western African region. So we are in conversations with our theology school over there and our peace studies program in Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire, to see whether we can also replicate some of these programs that we are already doing. We want to create sort of a network of these Jesuit universities in response to the challenge of migration within the continent. So our shared vision, which is rooted in faith and justice, is also to raise awareness not only for our own Jesuit students or students within our Jesuit institutions, but also link this up and collaborate with other universities and colleges in order to raise that particular awareness and come up with joint projects that we can do together to address this issue. Thank you very much.
Next, we welcome Dr. Pradeep Karketa, Jesuit Associate Professor and Assistant Director at Management Institute, Ranchi, India. He is also the Secretary of Higher Education of Ranchi Jesuit Province and the coordinator of the Central Zone of Jesuit Provinces, which consists of 5 provinces. He holds a doctorate in economics, and his interest area is in developmental studies. He is deeply involved over the years in IAJU. Prior to this was at the Boston Gathering, also participated in the World Social Forum in 2008, the United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues in New York in 2011. Being closely associated with the development activities of the Institute, he developed a deep passion to work for the excluded, taught managerial economics and macroeconomics, marketing, finance, and an arm's length list of other courses, all the way to social responsibility. We are delighted to welcome him here today. Please welcome him.
Good afternoon. I come from a country where our population is 1.21 billion, more than 1.2 billion. And the context that we are dealing with the UAP, the Universal Apostolic Preferences of Jesuits all over the world. And therefore, I'll be concentrating more on the scheduled tribe and scheduled caste that we have in South Asia and their plight as migrant workers, migrant laborers. Now the current census we had, where the ST population is more than 8.6% of the total population, and SC population is 16.6% of the total population. This is just information because I'll be analyzing on that. The region mentioned here is two parts we can see. One is the push factor, another one is pull factor. The pull factors are very attractive where the migrants move from the village, from the rural area to the cities. So like employment opportunities or the better compensation, wages, better wages. For these purposes, they move to the cities, metropolitan cities, and bigger cities. And the push factors are like poverty, unemployment, and other social issues are there. So there are social issues, political issues, cultural issues, all factors are responsible for migration of this marginalized group. Here, in the slide it has been shown both. Study has been made by CCD, which is in Gujarat, and also the XIR, that is in the central part of India. So they had identified some regions. For these regions, they move out to cities, metropolitan cities. And therefore, they experience broadly that the social exclusion, financial, political, cultural, and technological exclusion. And that's why these are the regions that they move out from the place of origin to the place of destination. Here, some research and involvement. Yes, we have some institutions, higher education institutions, as well as the social institutions that are higher education institutions. They are deeply involved in the research, advocacy, and training. So here, few points you can see with the marginal communities and scholars, the Indian Social Institute, which is in Delhi, collaborated in the area of intellectual and academic interventions. And this is one, but regularly they have been doing this work. The Institute has conducted a number of research studies on marginalized communities, on tribals, Dalits, children, women, and other minority groups. Indian Social Institute, Delhi and Bengaluru do the collaborative work with the stakeholders on migrants and refugees. And like some groups are here. They also collaborate with the Ashirwad, which is in Bengaluru, and JMS, that is in Chennai. Some good practices, best practices that we have, we'd like to mention because it's a learning for us. Conducting workshop for NGOs, partners on legal issues, social security schemes and rights of migrants. These best practices we continue to do. We help the partner organizations, the NGOs, establishing linkages with the labor departments. E-Shram card, that is the labor card, this local language given. Health card, it is an ASA card in India we find. And also the police and other official groups through joint efforts with NGOs. The linkages are established. With the marginalized community and scholars, the Indian Social Institute has collaborated in the area of intellectual and academic interventions. In collaboration with people, NGOs, and civil society groups, a task building is done through personal engagement and involvement that includes activities like regular field visit, direct interaction with migrants, participating in their community programs, masses, meetings, cultural gathering for the building, task building. So these activities continue throughout the year in different places. So these are collaborations we do. And some best practices are also included. The working together with NGOs, like many NGOs we have included here. You can see Maine, Don Bosco for migrants, likewise birds, important ones. With our social institutes work, especially Bangalore, they are working where ISI Institute is there. GRS has reached out to many deprived and marginalized communities like the Rohingyas. Rohingyas are the Bangladesh. These migrants are from Bangladesh. Chin refugees are from Myanmar. Afghan refugees from Afghanistan. They are basically in Delhi, where the ISI Delhi is extending service. And Tamil refugees both in India as well as in abroad. GRS has taken up works of empowering the refugees through education, skill training, coaching centers, social centers, etc. So this service also, So lesson learned, we have some labor migrants living in a pathetic living condition and very unhygienic living conditions they live. So this is our experience in different locations. Dialect barriers, and they are vulnerable because they do not know the language. So there are middlemen, intermediaries working, and they are the exploiters, they're exploiting. They work on behalf of the employers. They are the employers, in fact. They take people from the villages and they employ. And therefore, they are accountable to these people, the middlemen, and therefore, they exploit maximum to the laborers, especially the migrant workers. Need for empathetic listening and with compassionate heart. This is our learning, that this is very Jesuit, that empathetic listening and with compassionate heart. Collaborative ventures and the practices that have created a nationwide network. This is again the experience of ISI Delhi that they have explained. Collaborative ventures have helped ISI Delhi connecting with the international organizations and the agencies. Next. The more lessons we have, the collaborative involvement has become a springboard of hope for the people, which empowers and educates the masses. So this is again the effort is done. The collaborative efforts of ISI Delhi have brought people's issues and the concerns to the government and to the policy makers and influence in bringing about the constructive laws and the policies. So this is how the advocacy work also they do together with the research. Given the chance, the people become the agents of change. This is a very important point I would like to underline. We have been giving training to the people, but they become the agent of change when we empower them and we educate them. So this is the Jesuit venture that we're putting our effort to empower them and to educate them so that they become the agent of change. Joint representations to government bodies are more effective. So this is again point to be noted, that when we work together with organizations, so many NGOs and other partner organizations, we become stronger in our advocacy and thereby our impact is more. Collaborative is more successful when the migrants themselves are empowered and educated. So this was the point again I was mentioning. This is very important point. Again, this is our Jesuit approach again, is that we empower and then educate people so that they themselves come forward to tackle their cause. So from our part, we give hand-holding training and then support, but at the same time, once they are empowered and educated, they come forward and raise the voice for their cause. Next. These are some of the slides. These are only glimpses of what happens. Here I have shown that how we give training and educate our own partner organizations, NGOs, and other partner organizations, those organizations which are working with us. And so the picture shows that they are in the training. And the other side you see where the registration work is going on, just the previous one. The registration work is going on, where the migrant workers move to the place of origin and they become so vulnerable. And therefore, they have to get registered in the place of destination. Otherwise, they become more vulnerable when they have not registered. Even if they get lost, nobody will know. So this is one step has been taken by even in Bangalore, ISI Bangalore, and also in Delhi, and other places by our social organizations. And this work has helped them to get also the entitlements from the government schemes and other schemes. And I showed that when they have the Abha card, that is the health card, and also when they have the Shram card, that is labor card, they are entitled to get the government schemes wherever they are. Not the place of origin, but also the place of destinations, they can get benefit from there. This picture shows that the migrants are desperately waiting for the job. This is a situation many cities in India you will find, many places you will find. In the morning, they go to the place, waiting for the job, waiting for the employers, and many employers come, they pick up. You will find the report I have received from Gujarat, also received from other places, even from Bangalore, and various other places I have received this kind of pictures where the workers flock in different cities, especially the metropolitan cities where they have moved. Very pathetic. And the slide shows, or the one image shows, where after getting training, they have become aware, and therefore they are demanding their rights. So this is how our effort is to giving them training and empowering them by giving and making them understand their rights and duties. Next. Some recommendations, the very concrete recommendations I would like to propose. The protecting migrant laborers from the tyranny of the middlemen, especially concerning the wages and the compensation. This is the very big area. When they go to the metropolitan cities, they become very, very vulnerable. And the tyranny of the middlemen, they are the one who exploit the maximum because they are like the real employer. They get people, take it to the industry or to the employer, and they are accountable for anything that happens. Shelter home for the migrants should be built in migrant concentrated ACTs. This is very important. Once they move from the place of origin, they are very vulnerable because they do not have shelter. And therefore some places we have, like Chennai we have, I came to know, and other places also in Bangalore we have. And likewise the arrangement has been made where at least they can stay and work. Without shelter home, they are helpless and also very, very vulnerable, especially the girls, when they move out from the village, they do not know, especially they do not know the language, they do not know the culture, do not know the city life, and therefore they are exposed to many risks that way. Scholarship, just previous one, the scholarship to the migrant students and refugees for better education. So this is very important thing because the ISI Delhi is intervening there in Delhi, and therefore they propose this. Conducting research and seminar on the migrants and the refugees topics. So this is again the researchers can do and help and highlight the topic. Encouraging research to highlight the issues of the migrants and refugees. The national and international agencies need to support those organizations which truly work on collaborative and network approach to others. This is again fostering strong networks with NGOs and other organizations available. Next. Next. Yeah. So this is, again, study is going on, so for the information I bring here. The research studies are underway. So we through the different higher education institution, do some research work, advocacy, training and development, and this work have already started. One is very important one, the research study on migrant and financial empowerment of Siddhi tribe. They are African descent. And this work is being done by St. Joseph University, Bengaluru in India, southern part of India. Still it is in progress. Research study on migrants on scheduled tribe. This is in Jharkhand, that is eastern part of India. Then again, the Indian Institute of Delhi conducting a global research on collaboration. There is University of Alberta, Canada. So they have received they have got the funding from there. So they are doing this. Next. So these are the works that we have done. And apart from this, I would like to say that our institutions have done work, but we need more collaborative effort, more work, more advocacy in coming days. So this particular conference can help us also to strengthen our collaborative effort, networking, and also we can do more work in coming days. Thank you.
In this journey around the world, we are honored to welcome Father Tomasz Homan. Is okay? No, Tomasz? Yeah. Mm-hmm. He's a philosopher, researcher, and educator who currently serves as a rector of Ignatianum University in Krakow, Poland. He holds a PhD in philosophy and an habilitation in humanities, specializing in political philosophy and technical research on Christian formation in Polish society and philosophical perspectives of citizenship in Europe. Throughout his academic career, he has held various leadership roles, including Vice Dean, Director of the Institute for Cultural Studies, Dean of the Faculty of Philosophy, and now Rector. So please, welcome Father Tomasz.
So it's better. Yes, thank you for inviting me to this panel group on migration, refugees, and those on the frontiers. I see that some of us are already a little bit tired, so I try to speak no longer than 1 hour. Are you agree? Okay. But yes, seriously. Yesterday, during morning prayer, we were engaged to reflect on a question. What and whose cries accompany the storms we identify in that time, in this time. And we have just heard a series of answers to this question from the perspective of Latin America, Africa, and Asia. From the perspective of Poland, and more generally of Eastern European countries, the region where I come from, particularly strongly resonate the cries of Ukrainian refugees. So I would like to share with you some reflections on these Ukrainian cries and our answers from 3 perspectives. First, from the perspective of the Polish society. Then, from the perspective of our province, Southern Poland province. And finally, from the perspective of our university, Ignatianum University in Krakow. So, let's move on to the first perspective, which I titled Listening to this Cries of Ukrainian Refugees from the Perspective of the Polish Society. Just to give you an idea of the scale of the crisis provoked by the war, I would just like to remind you that in the first 2 months of the war in the Ukraine, almost 2 million people came to Poland, and currently we are hosting about 1 million refugees with active temporary protection status in Poland. And I must admit that such a large number of people looking for a safe shelter in such a short time was for us a huge challenge. As you know, or maybe some of us, we didn't build refugee camps in Poland. We didn't build refugee camps. In the face of this challenge, we have chosen a different approach, namely quite spontaneously. We opened our homes, accepting them not as refugees, but as our guests, offering them in the spirit of the solidarity, our hospitality, giving them not only a safe space among us, but also the same rights that we have as Polish citizens. And I can say that it was a kind of very spontaneous solidarity in action. Now let us move on to the second perspective, to the perspective of the southern Poland province. Since the fall of the Soviet Union, 1990s, our province is engaged in Ukraine, and since 2018, Ukraine is a part of our province as Ukrainian mission. And this engagement in Ukraine takes into account, among others, pastoral works like parish ministry, spiritual formation like retreats, and social initiatives like Jesuit refugee service in Lviv. And after Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, February 24, in year 2022, our province has supported Ukrainian refugees in Ukraine and in Poland through humanitarian solidarity initiatives. These initiatives were carried out in Ukraine and in Poland, both in cooperation with the White Stork Organization, a humanitarian organization founded by the alumni of US universities, as well as by the province itself. What was the humanitarian impact of this engagement? This humanitarian impact of these initiatives in cooperation with the White Star Organization in the short term, I mean in the year 2022, consisted of evacuation of 38,000 people from Ukraine to Poland, and of providing short-term housing outside Ukraine for 14,500 refugees. It was possible in collaboration with White Star Organization, and the second, this kind of housing in collaboration with Airbnb organization. And I have to say that this first time, 2022, was for us in Poland emotionally and psychologically the hardest experience, seeing or even touching their despair, pain, and loss. And in medium term, that means till now, from 22 till 25, this impact consists in delivering over 120,000 IFACs, namely individual first aid kits, to Ukraine, and in equipping Ukrainian trains with over 1,200 medical backpacks, and in distribution of about 200 power generators. We could do all these things thanks to organized and partnership-based cooperation with others, with other not Jesuit organizations and networks. And at the same time, the humanitarian impact of these initiatives run by our province in the year 2022 consisted in providing hospitality for over 150 refugees hosted in our communities in Ukraine and in Poland. And in the medium and long term, it consists in launching in Chernivtsi, this is a city in the southern part of Ukraine, close to the border to Romania. So it consists in launching in Chernivtsi the Jesuit Center for Spiritual and Psychological Health, Dialogue and Communication. This center is called Space of Hope. And finally, we move on to the third perspective, from the perspective of our university, of the Ignatianum University in Krakow. Our most significant contribution in listening to the needs of refugees from Ukraine is in support, training, and research we do. Namely, consists of running for youth and children educational hubs, is a kind of safe space, out schools space for children. And this is made or run in collaboration, in this case, with other organization, Aspire, design a business organization. Secondly, in conceptually and financially support of the Space of Hope Center. Also in the introducing trauma psychology courses in the psychology curriculum at our university. And finally, in launching of the research and implementation project called Pedagogy of Trauma. I can say that we realize that this is just a drop in the ocean of needs of the Ukrainian refugees. But this is, in my opinion, a drop of solidarity, hope, and humanity that we can and we want to share with them. How many time I have? Just. So, the time is over. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those powerful interventions, everyone. It has been incredibly insightful. I have a few follow-up questions to really dig a bit deeper into what you have shared. Let me start with Margarita. Probably we can shift a little bit from English into Spanish, ¿no? Margarita, has mencionado en diferentes momentos, ¿no? Has hecho hincapié en la necesidad de defender sin miedo a las personas migrantes, como nos animaba el padre Arturo Sosa, ¿no? Desafiando las narrativas de criminalización y promoviendo también otras narrativas más positivas que destaquen pues, sus contribuciones. Tú lo has hecho también a través de los informes que has presentado. Me gustaría preguntarte, desde tu punto de vista, Margarita, ¿cuál es tu experiencia, cuál es la forma más eficaz en la que has visto que las universidades, aquellas con las que te toca trabajar más de la mano, ¿no? Dentro de PRAMI, ¿no? ¿Cuáles son las formas más eficaces en las que las universidades pueden marcar la diferencia en ese trabajo de advocacy y en ese cambio, en esa perspectiva también de percepción política, pública sobre la migración? Cuéntanos algo sobre esto, Margarita, por favor.
Claro, pues lo decía un poco en la presentación, aunque justo no profundicé en eso, y creo que también ha sido mencionado en los otros paneles, ¿no? Sabemos y reconocemos que la universidad muchas veces sigue siendo esa voz legítima que en otros espacios puede no ser escuchada. Y esto lo vemos, por ejemplo, muy recurrentemente en el acompañamiento a personas defensoras, a organizaciones locales, albergues, cuando son estos actores los que están dialogando con actores gubernamentales, muchas veces las puertas se cierran. Pero cuando ese diálogo lo acompaña la universidad, el tono puede ser otro y hay más disposición a la escucha y al diálogo auténtico, ¿no? Como lo reflexionaba ayer también el padre general. En ese sentido, justo creo que es este carisma de las universidades jesuitas, pero estas herramientas que mencionaba también en la presentación, estas herramientas que nos permiten tener datos, que nos permiten tener evidencia, que nos permiten acercar argumentos concretos que nos pueden ayudar a desarmar muchas veces los argumentos que se presentan digamos, con estas perspectivas de criminalización de la migración, porque lo que sabemos quienes estamos en estos temas, y seguramente muchas y muchos de ustedes lo saben, es que generalmente estas narrativas criminalizantes de la migración se basan en prejuicios y en hechos que son falsos, ¿no? Parte también este tema de la posverdad, que ayer se hablaba de las 4 Ps, creo que están muy vinculadas también al tema migratorio. Entonces, al predominar estas narrativas hegemónicas que criminalizan, que no están basadas en evidencia, y poder abrir espacios de diálogo con esa evidencia, acompañando la voz de quienes están en el terreno, el tono del diálogo, la disposición a la escucha, pues es otra. En esa medida también creo que en la universidad tenemos también las herramientas de pensar en formatos distintos, porque mucho de lo que nosotras hacemos en el programa a veces sí tiene un enfoque académico, pero no siempre. También pensamos mucho y generalmente estamos intentando ser cada vez más creativas en no solo cómo tener la documentación y tener la evidencia, sino en cómo comunicar esa documentación y esa evidencia. Y para eso, pues también las universidades tenemos las herramientas para pensar de manera creativa. Entonces, hay que pensar también cómo presentar esa evidencia según el público y con el que estamos dialogando. Muchos de los informes que nosotras realizamos, y lo puse un poco en la presentación, terminan generalmente en videos, en materiales didácticos, en infografías, que precisamente vuelven accesible esta evidencia y estos datos a un público más amplio, justamente para desarmar y desmontar estos prejuicios y estas narrativas que se sustentan en prejuicios.
Muchas gracias, Margarita. I'm going now to follow with Father Tomasz, but I will invite also the audience to start thinking of questions to our panel. Father Tomasz, when the war in Ukraine started, just after this, I was visiting Poland in my way to Ukraine. Something that struck me, and in a good way. When I was in Warsaw and also in Krakow, in Warsaw I was, I don't know, many of you know Bobolanun, the rector of one of our, are here. I saw every time that I was visiting there, it was a door of the Jesuit community that it was put clausura, not close, the thing. And I was a little bit shocked, I was not familiar in Spain with this, So it was always silence in the corridor, long corridor, in Warsaw. And the first time after the war, I opened the door. And when I opened the door, I started listening kids playing at the end of the corridor. Running, playing with the ball in the long corridor. And for me, I was really struck about this. I saw that our scholastics start playing with the kids, helping the moms when they finish their studies, their classes of philosophy or theology there. So it's I felt that the war bring something unexpected, This vulnerability that we see with the families, with the kids, brings something new to our Jesuit communities in Poland. I know that is the same case in Europe. It was the same case in other countries, But please, can you share with us a little bit what have you experienced, especially with the scholastics, with the Jesuit communities, in this engagement with vulnerability, or open the door of our communities? Just briefly share some insights that you feel that have changed a little bit, life of Jesuit communities in Poland.
Yes, very briefly. Okay. Yeah, I remember that we decided to open our communities after the war was in the Ukraine, and it was, in a certain sense, one of our, possibilities to participate in the tragedy of the Ukrainian people. And so daily we received about 150 people, and so for months,
in several houses, in several communities in the southern and in the northern province of Poland. It was normal, this kind of solidarity without needing to explain why we want to do this. And of course, with a great openness from the communities and from the people, so-called on the street. It was very beautiful experience in this sense at the very beginning of the presence of Ukrainian refugees in Poland. Of course, we knew that after the first time of this kind of spontaneous solidarity will come another time, more difficult, and that we have to deal with this, with the problems and other things because of the longer staying of refugees in Poland. It is right now our situation, but also now we are hosting Ukrainian refugees in our communities.
Thanks a lot, Tomasz.
We do have additional questions for our other panelists, but we want to open this up to the floor for your questions before we get to some of the practicalities of next steps and applicability to each of our university situations. So we have wonderful colleagues here with microphones at the ready, and wonder if you have questions for any of the panelists. Yes.
My question is to all the four panelists: how does the development paradigm, which is across the globe, whether you call developed countries or developing countries, and therefore there are many reasons for migration, but do you think that development paradigm which the world has accepted, whether you call in the globalized world where consumerism is very high, we talked about AI, and AI has advantage, but the resources and energy is consumes, and therefore does this kind of development also has a role to play in migration and therefore making situation worse?
If you'd like to respond, Elias, did you want to respond to that?
Voy a responder en español. Sí, en definitiva, cada vez más estos temas de los conflictos socioambientales, la emergencia climática, tiene que ver con la migración. En concreto, creo que también aquí hay un campo emergente de estudios. Hay estudios que se han hecho al respecto, pero es algo que todavía hay que explorar con mucha profundidad. Puedo hablar concretamente del caso de México y lo que hemos estado haciendo desde el programa. Muchas veces se habla en México del desplazamiento forzado asociado a la violencia. Y esta violencia se queda, digamos, en términos amplios y ambiguos, pero no necesariamente se desmenuza qué hay detrás de esa violencia. En el programa, en la universidad, en colaboración con el Programa de Asuntos Indígenas y de Sustentabilidad, tenemos un observatorio de conflictos socioambientales donde estamos intentando responder esa pregunta, porque justamente tenemos la hipótesis y cierta información de campo de los actores con los que trabajamos que nos dan indicios de que esta violencia que está causando el desplazamiento forzado, que muchas veces se asocia a grupos del crimen organizado o grupos armados, también está vinculada con proyectos extractivos y conflictos socioambientales. Entonces, justamente creo que ahí hay un campo muy abierto para explorar, para seguir haciendo investigación con mucha profundidad que nos permita entender de manera mucho más amplia y profunda cómo suceden estas cosas. Quienes han estudiado más estos temas justamente hablan de que no hay relaciones directas entre cambio climático, emergencias climáticas, conflictos socioambientales y migración. Son pocos los casos en los que se ve esa relación muy directa y que estas relaciones dependen mucho de los contextos sociales, políticos, culturales y ambientales también, donde se dan estos fenómenos. Entonces, ahí hay muchísimo que hacer por investigar.
Thank you. Others, yes, in the back.
With all my appreciation to all the panelists, I would like to highlight the work of JWL in empowering the refugee youth, which was missing, but I can tell you, especially in Afghanistan, where there are no structures and systems, and JWL has offered and continues to offer, in spite of many hurdles, educational platform to the refugees and the forcefully displaced people, and people who have returned from Pakistan and Iran, other neighboring countries. And in Sri Lanka and Afghanistan and in Africa, JWL role is very, very important in taking the education and connecting with the world-renowned, our own Jesuit colleges and universities. So having set the role of the JWL in empowering the refugees, because JRS concentrates on the humanitarian services. And when it comes to the education at the higher level, JWL plays the important role. So in this connection, I would like to also draw the attention of this members that how we can help the Rohingyas. Nearly 1 million refugees are there in Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh. And you know the condition of the Bangladesh in various fronts and their performance and achievements in various fronts. And there is no elected government right now, and we never know when there will be a political stability. That's a different case. But now how we can assist the JRS or the other NGOs in helping the youth. At least one generation is growing in Cox's Bazar without having any access, affordability to lower level education, leave alone the higher education. But we can offer other diplomas and degrees, other things. We can imaginatively come out for this particular group, and also the Afghanistan group with the departure of United States, and the Taliban is ruling the country, the so-called type of governance is going on, how we can restructure, reimaginatively come up to help these helpless refugees in these regions. Thank you.
One comment with respect to JWL. I understand JWL has a parallel session today as well, which is wonderful. And actually in the next step section of this session, we were hoping to exactly make that reference and to make sure that this is all in one common, bushel basket of responses, coordinated responses to migrant and refugee populations. I want to open this up with respect to the question about the Rohingya and how to approach in a more coordinated fashion, which I think is what you were asking, a response. So does anybody want to respond?
I would respond this way. Higher education institutions, in their own institutions, there are a lot of activities and many times busy. All the same, this cannot be an excuse. They can do and they can help. Like one concrete recommendations I had given, where I mentioned that more highlight has to be done so that many organizations come forward and contribute towards their education, as he's asking about the youth, children and youth. Secondly, the higher education can become the knowledge partner to the organizations that are working in and around Rohingyas are there, and also other refugees are there. So these two things I see immediately where the higher education institution can come forward and contribute.
Okay.
Just,
Yes. Oh, please.
I just wanted to add I think one of the things that Jesuit universities could do also is the study of mobility, and especially labor mobility across different countries. We have seen migrations from Asia, Latin America, and Africa into some of the Emirate countries, people looking for jobs. And sometimes you have these recruitment agencies that do not actually tell you the actual situation of what you're going to get in terms of job offers that have been made. It's like listening to a drug advert in the United States, let's call it Doxaline, and you're told Doxaline will help you sleep better if you have a problem with sleep, and then when they put terms and conditions apply, all of a sudden the advert goes very fast, and this can cause you, sleepless nights, and you may fall down, and you don't really get the full explanation of what to expect. So I think some studies have been done in terms of human trafficking. Now organ trafficking has also become very lucrative. Many people are losing their organs who have been trafficked into countries where they expected to get jobs, but they end up being trafficked. And now human trafficking is the second most lucrative business, second to drug trafficking in the world today. So I think it's an area that we also need to investigate. Thank you.
Thank you, Elias. Any other questions? Yeah, there.
Thank you for a very interesting panel. It occurred to me to ask Father Tomas, since he was very good about keeping his time, it seems like he didn't have a chance to say too much about the House of Hope, the Center for Treating People with War Trauma. And I would be interested to know what kinds of practical learnings have come out of that experience. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Yes, I only mentioned that we started our activities founding and launching the Center for Spiritual and Psychological Health, Dialogue and Communication called Space of Hope. And we really want that this center becomes a real space of hope. And the center, this is what offers the center. Nowadays, I can say this a kind of first aid activities which are needed by the Ukrainian children, women, generally people. And that means the activities they are running now in the center regarding trauma, war trauma, and this is one aspect of the activities of this project of Space of Hope. But there are also other parts, and in certain sense, next steps which we want to go. So yesterday, Father General in his speech said us that we have to be several steps ahead of the time. And in this sense, I understand also these next steps. One of them is the launching of the School of Trauma Therapists, both for our psychology, our team of psychologists we already have in Chernivtsi in Ukraine. They are psychologists from National University of Chernivtsi. And another aspect of these schools is to offer our trainings for other people who work on this field in other cities, because there are more centers of this kind in Ukraine, and we see that they need a kind of upskilling their capabilities as as trauma therapists. The third aspect of the space of hope is the more social. We have in Ukraine with a destroyed society, and the reconstruction of the Ukrainian society needs new leaders. And we want to contribute to train also social leaders. And the fourth, we have in Ukraine with a deep division of the nation between Western and Eastern Ukraine. Because of the historical reasons, and that means that we have to face, or we face already, a huge challenge of reconciliation, which is necessary in the afterward time, for the afterward time, but also nowadays.
Thank you, Tomasz. We have the time for the last question. I don't know if anyone is willing to see. Well, yeah, there is one question over there.
Thank you for that presentation. And there are a lot of reasons for this group of people emerging as refugees and migrants. Say, for example, armed conflicts, or war, or ethnic or religious violence, and a lot of other reasons. But then there's one pertinent reason, which is environmental disasters, or environmental disasters or climate change. That is a major reason, for displacement or people becoming refugees or migrants. Do you think, like, the other things cannot be prevented? Like, it's very difficult, it's a complex phenomenon, like religious conflicts or war and other things. But then environmental disasters and stuff, or environmental degradation, that can be prevented. So what are the efforts that, people can take to avoid these things? Could you please elaborate on that? Thank you.
Tal vez no tengo la respuesta específica, pero sí que en un esfuerzo que hemos hecho precisamente en la red jesuita con migrantes, con obras sociales, con universidades de toda la región en América Latina, por trazar una agenda de incidencia en términos de conflictos socioambientales, justicia climática y migración. En definitiva, hemos identificado que hay una agenda pendiente para acercarnos a estos temas de manera preventiva, que tienen que ver con lo que mencionaba hace unos momentos, con que hace falta investigación, justamente, por ejemplo, para identificar zonas de riesgo, probabilidades de zonas de riesgo, y además esto implica ampliar la mirada pues a problemáticas estructurales mucho más amplias, como lo decía también en la presentación, que se interrelacionan con la migración. Al final de cuentas, precisamente este tipo de migración pone de manera muy explícita que la migración en realidad es el síntoma de causas mucho más estructurales que precisamente tienen que ver con los conflictos socioambientales y pues las injusticias socioambientales. Hay mucha investigación que hacer por ahí. En la Red Jesuita con Migrantes el año pasado estuvimos participando en el proceso. En América Latina contamos con la Declaración de Cartagena, que es una declaración que amplía la definición de personas refugiadas para la región. Algunos estados la reconocen de manera oficial en su legislación y otros están en proceso de reconocimiento. Pero el año pasado estuvimos participando en este proceso de incidencia porque se hizo una revisión de la declaración y justamente, por ejemplo, uno de las negociaciones centrales con los estados fue que incluyeran la migración por razones socioambientales y climáticas como una de las causales para reconocer el refugio. De ahí también se desprendió un plan de acción, se desprende un plan de acción en donde hay consideradas algunas de las medidas preventivas, pero que básicamente tienen que ver con medidas preventivas asociadas al cambio climático y las emergencias climáticas, ¿no? Entonces aquí es donde se interseccionan temas de quienes somos expertos en migración con quienes son expertos en cambio climático, emergencias climáticas, y donde tenemos que trabajar juntas y juntos para profundizar en entender cómo suceden estos fenómenos, para también proponer respuestas que no solo sean reactivas, sino que sean preventivas.
Thank you so much, Margarita. We'll go now with the last step. That is the next step that Stephanie, she will help us on see how we can move forward, especially on different elements, that we see that can be interested, especially for all of you, in our universities.
You see at your seats a bookmark with a QR code, and it is on our slides coming up here, I think, as well. But there are some next steps that IAJU Migration, thank you, is recommending. I think I'll just hold it, thanks. That we want to mention to you. The first, and we've really honed in on 3 focus areas. Because the question, of course, is what does this mean for my university? The work of solidarity with migrants and refugees is so specific and regional, and yet it is of course, a global phenomenon and global for us as a network of schools. So we have tried to focus a little more than we did at the last assembly, really try to hone in on 3 areas. The first of which is taking care of researchers. So some of you may know, or some of you may be listed in the Migration Research Directory. We want to note that the Migration Research Directory is undergoing an overhaul, so that it becomes a much more global resource for all of our schools, and that it is one piece of a larger effort by IAJU Migration to provide resources for researchers. In the directory, you can look up by region, by area of concern, the UNHCR categories, or by a particular researcher in order to promote collaboration across schools and around the world. Also, for any of us who are looking for high quality research around migration and refugee issues, to be able to find it. We've been saying it's a good stopping point for lawmakers to find research too, but we just cross our fingers that lawmakers are looking for good research, and will make use of this resource as well. Also, webinars and newsletters. These are all, have begun, and this is all part of the plan for the coming year. When you go to the QR code, you will land on a page that it has been established with these resources and will continue to be built out. The second category is offering rectors and presidents a vision for your institutions. In that area, on the page, you'll find the principles of engagement. What are the assumptions for any kind of college or university engagement with migrants and refugees on subjects that support their lives, and most importantly, in solidarity alongside. So those principles of engagement, as well as a growing list of best practices, are there. I want to note, with respect to best practices, that Dr. Susana De Trollio has been an absolutely tremendous colleague in this area. Her editorship of best practices in Jesuit higher education out of the Kircher Network has produced, in collaboration with this task force, now 2 issues of the magazine on solidarity with migrants and refugees. We put out a call for submissions, and there were so many that there were 2 issues. Then finally, dynamizing collaborative networks. So going to that QR code and participating as you can. What you'll find there also are 12 possible steps to get moving on any campus, no matter what the depth and current status of your own engagement is. So we want to thank our wonderful panelists, thank all of you who are engaged in such deep and important ways that we will never get to in one session, and to thank you for the many roads in you take to supporting migrants and refugees as this one community of Jesuit higher education. Thanks.